How would you describe what you do?
It's a very difficult question, I think, because the name of my upcoming exhibition will be Dream the World Away. And I think that I try to create dreams. That's a little bit what I'm chasing, I think. And of course I'm a fashion designer, and I'm a rather I think that I try to do rather loud things, and I try to experiment a lot. But on the other side, it's really important for me to create a kind of dream and to create a kind of content. And that's how I, from the beginning, was dealing and thinking about fashion. And that's still today how I'm thinking about it, and I'm trying to work with it.
Do you remember when your first interest in fashion started? Do you have a memory?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not the classical story than playing with dolls and then putting clothes on dolls, not that one. But my fascination for fashion and clothes started with David Bowie, with his Ziggy Stardust looks and the whole appearance that he created and all the different characters he created during the 70s. I was really amazed by that, because it was together with growing up in a small village, and it was such an amazing thing to see David Bowie performing in all these looks. And at that time I also realized that through clothing you could express a lot, and you could change your identity, you could tell stories. And I think that was really the starting point to think about how I could eventually work in the future.
So from that initial interest, how did you develop, your interest in fashion to go and to study it? When was this?
First of all, by buying clothes, by experimenting with clothes, and at that time I was even very much interested to draw and to do things which were creative things. And then at a certain moment I started to inform myself where I could go, eventually do something for my future, to study. And then I found out an article about Antwerp school, about academy in Antwerp. And then by coincidence I had the opportunity to visit the school on an open door, and I was really amazed about the mixture of making the clothes, working on drawings, putting together all these colors and things. And I thought it was a good opportunity to do that kind of study.
Okay.
And then I did an entrance exam, and then I failed. So it was a big disaster. I mean, it didn't feel like a big disaster, but I was really disappointed, of course. But I did like a preparation year to prepare myself, because until that day I didn't have a proper drawing skill. Okay. So I did the whole year an intensive training of drawing and working and painting, and then I started and I entered fashion department.
So you did get to study at Antwerp?
Yeah.
And how do you think the experience there has shaped you as a designer?
Yeah, it was an amazing period, because I was literally together with Martin in the class, Martin Margiela, and then the year after you had the other ones like Dries and Anne and Dirk, and so it was an amazing period with a lot of people intensively together in the school. And we were very ambitious, because we felt totally isolated in Antwerp, far away from the fashion world, and we really wanted to make it and to do something. And it was a very stimulating period, because everybody, when Dries was doing something, Martin wanted to do it better, and it was very stimulating. Okay. And together we had also a very nice relationship by discovering things. We were traveling together to Japan, we went together to New York, and it really created a lot of energy in the school. And the moment that we graduated, we also felt that we had to get out of Belgium. It was like stronger than it was really something we wanted to achieve.
As a group, you did make such an impact. What was it that you were doing was so different?
I think first of all that we were from Belgium, which was already a very exotic thing to say, and because there was no fashion history from Belgium before that, and then also the way that we were showing our collections was different than what was happening in general at that time, and we had a very distinct style. Everybody had his signature and something to tell, and there were everybody tried to tell also kind of story on the stand even. Okay. And I think it was rather impressive, and it was also multiplied with 6. It was one thing which suddenly was there.
And how do you think your aesthetic is seen in, compared to the other designers as part of that group?
From the Belgian school, you mean? Yeah, I was from the beginning, even at school, I was rather clear about what I wanted to show and how I was thinking about fashion. And if you see my schoolwork, you can still recognize it rather easily. And from the beginning, I love to work with colors and messages and express certain emotions through clothes. And I was fascinated by, from the beginning, by nature and by ethnic tribes. And all these things were reflected from the beginning in my clothes.
And also, a lot of your collections are seen to have messages, positive messages. So how important is that to you?
It's part of the storytelling. And then and one of the first things when I'm starting about a collection, I'm starting automatically to think how I'm gonna call it, and what will be the slogans I'm gonna use, and sometimes it comes very spontaneous, like a working title, which becomes the title, and sometimes it's more part of research that I'm reading about topics I like, and then I suddenly pop up on something which is interesting, and I use that as that will be the name then. And for example, this is something big is coming. It's referring. It was the name of. It's not the name. It's one of the slogans from the Hand on Heart collection, the last collection, and it's referring to the Maya prediction that in 2012 something big will happen. And I took it. Everybody's seeing it as the end of the world, but I saw it as finally something big will happen to the world, which will save the world. So I sometimes even try to change or change it into how I think about things, so I try to put always something positive.
Do you think it's important that your collections do have a very positive social sort of message?
Yes, that's also why I try to put my work in first of all a social context, but also in a kind of positive context. And even if I'm talking about a tough topic, I did a lot of collections which were referring to AIDS problematics or to ecological problems. I still try to tell it in a way that it has a light feeling, or it can be even read in a very positive way. Because I'm not the one who is telling it in a kind of doom way, from watch out, you have to do this or that and that. It was more about trying to tell something in a way that you can digest it and that you can think about without becoming totally sad.
Can you tell us a bit about your creative process, how you actually begin designing collections?
I think it's a very normal process. I don't see it so strange or exceptional. It's even when I'm ending my previous collection, I always start to think about doing some research about topics that I'm interested in, and I try to gather as much as possible inspiration. But that happens very easily by reading books or looking to images or just going to exhibitions, or so there's a kind of always natural way of gathering things around me, and then at a certain moment something catches me or grabs me more than another theme, and that's then in fact the starting point. And it can be very simple or very very complex, but there is always something which is a spark which is starting the inspiration.
And have you seen the fashion industry change since you first started working?
Yeah, that's also the incredible thing about the fashion in general, that it's changing all the time. It's evolving, it's changing, it is reflecting what's going on in our society, and a lot of things happened the last 30 years. So no, I think that when we were at school, there were these glory moments of Mugler, Montana, Gaultier. Then there were immediately after Yoshi Yamamoto, Comme des Garçons. It was like the euphoria of fashion. And then we went through the rich 80s and the power dressing, and then we had the punk. I mean, it was a very rich thing which was going on. Of course, the punk was before that. And but on the other hand, it's fascinating how it keeps you interested, and even now I think it's another changing point in fashion, and you see that a lot of things are happening and are rethought and are it stays interesting.
Do you ever get tired of doing what you do? Do you ever think I need to do something different?
Yeah, of course I get tired of keeping up and keeping, but on the other hand I believe enough in it to keep on going. And sometimes of course it's tough because another financial thing to solve, and that's of course the way I'm working. It gives me a lot of freedom, but it's also demanding a lot of input, so I do a lot of commercial consultancy to do exactly what I want in my collections. But on the other hand, it's also I still like it, and I still want to go for it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today.
You've got a reputation for using real models and challenging the perceptions of models on the catwalk.
Because I like the variety in the world. I was never so keen on the so-called perfect beauty, and I want to show that also through my work. And it was always for me very challenging to work with different body types, with different types of people, and that's I think really part of my open-minded way of working also. That at the end it doesn't matter that a person is big, small, tall, androgenic, or it can be anybody, and I think that that's the nice thing about the world, is this variety, and that's why I wanted to express also.
Do you think that you're actually playing with stereotypes in casting your models?
I don't think it's really stereotypes, because that's something which I don't see as such a positive way of thinking about people, because of course you have this kind of different youth cultures and different things which are happening, but there it's almost about imitating or repeating a certain style, and that's definitely not a thing I try to focus on. It's for me it's more the individual statement and individual look, which is at the end more important than the whole thing which is happening around, I think.
Because you are obviously communicating serious messages and serious subjects. Do you think sometimes people don't take it seriously? They just see it as clothes?
Yeah, that's the other side, and which is it's sometimes frustrating. But also in the meantime, I'm used to it, and I see that once it's also happening a lot with press people, of course, because they see this parade of strange things happening, and a lot of them just say, this is it's a little bit fun, it's stupid, it's this and that, it's and that's then the final conclusion. But I also saw during the years that once they get into the whole world and they start to talk with me, and I'm explaining what it's all about, they get interested also, they get also excited about it. And sometimes it's just a lack of knowing what is happening behind.
Would you say that you try and shock people at all?
I don't have that feeling that I want desperately to shock, despite the fact that I know that certain things I'm doing could be shocking for certain people, but they're definitely not for me. And that's also what I also change my boundaries, and I push forward the things I want to show, and sometimes I think it's time to show such a thing, just to push forward and to push forward fashion also. And all these things are happening rather spontaneous and normal in my head.
What do you think is the most misconceptions people have about you?
Yeah, that what we were talking about before, that they don't take me serious. And once you're using colors and once you're using some funny things or makeups, they suddenly classify you with the less serious designers. And I think I can talk about my colleagues that it's sometimes much more difficult and much more daring to do that kind of statements. And it's not that you're using a certain color or doing a certain thing that you suddenly are serious, and but that's also in art like that. I mean, it used to be very hard, and I think if you think back in the 90s and then how art was misconceived and all these minimal things going on, and it took a long time before that kind of artists which were doing this more extreme statements like Mike Kelly and Paul McCartney were accepted and were taken seriously. So I still hope that in fashion there will be a day that will be also taken seriously.